Let's take a deep dive into the grazing system at Lawmaster Farms. Hi, I'm Josh, and this is Ranching and Roots.
All right, going to go over a little bit of this grazing system. This farm over here is 300 acres. Majority of it is divided into square 40s until you get down to where we were in the other videos in the bottom. Of course, it's not square 40s, but majority of the farm is square 40s. I've been on rotational grazing systems that used cross fences all over the place, had itty bitty gates and alleyways, and if I need to make hay or I need to spray, I want to be able to come out in the field, get that completed without going through a bunch of small gates, having a bunch of corners. So I chose to split my 40s in half and then use polywire reels to make my paddocks. With that being said, to keep cows within 800 feet of water, I ran my water underneath my fences. So this tube with the green cap, which it's still winter, I haven't taken these off yet, but that has a quick connect water point in there. And so I have two of those in each 40. So basically you can split it into 4 10-acre paddocks. Now keep in mind, this project was designed 3-4 years ago. And over those years of waiting for funding from NRCS and all that, I would do this different. I'll probably speak to that at the end of this video. But this is what we have. This project was a rent farm whenever we started. We've now worked out a deal on this farm where we will end up owning it. So, with that being said, whenever this first started, it was going to be that black poly pipe on top of the ground underneath the fence with watering points, because I didn't want to spend a whole lot of money when it was a rent farm and then end up losing it, and you know how that goes. After we worked out a deal, we have not started the project yet, so I was able to get with my NRCS guy and we did some amending on the contracts. They allowed me to bury the pipeline, which was nice. Everything else stayed the same, but hey, I'll take that. So 3-strand, high tensile wire. I know a lot of people are going to say, well, you use T-posts. And yes, I did. We had 200 T-posts, good used T-posts sitting in the barn. I didn't see the reason to go spend all the money when I had it sitting here. The timeless fence post would be better. I totally agree. You won't have to worry about shorts, insulators. But like I said, I had those timeless posts, or I don't even remember what they are. They're like 3 times the cost of a T-post. So poor people have poor ways. This is the way I did it. I might regret it later, but so the 3-strand, I wanted baby calves to be able to crawl under the fence. Of course, we haven't calved using the system yet. My plan is to turn the bottom wire off where it is not hot so babies can come and go, and hopefully cut down on some of the issues of calves getting stuck on the other side of the fence, etc. All my gates over here are the spring gates. I know there's better stuff out there. Read a bunch, the bungee rope gates are supposed to be a little better. We'll do this for now. Hopefully our next equip project gets funding, and if that's the case, we'll have virtual fencing collars, so these won't even matter. So I'm going to show you what these watering points kind of look like. I've got spectators. So they are buried. That's a Klassen quick connect coupler. They're all valved like that. Little cap. So Here's what one of those are. It's plassin. You open the cap, and it's kind of like an air check. So there's no ring in there that seals. And then you've got the male end that you would put your hose on here that goes to your water tank. It's kind of hard to do one-handed. So that just goes in there. It's spring loaded. And it snaps together. And you've got full flow water. And you can just unsnap it. There you go. And you've got your lid to kind of keep the dust out of it, dirt out of it. Pretty simple. If you watch much, you know, Greg Judy uses a lot of these. So that's majority of what my water system is set up besides tire tanks. So little South Pole yearlings. So for water hose, we're going to use Flexzilla. So they're pro hose. You can buy a 250-foot reel. And then they make these replaceable ends that you put on. So that way we can kind of tailor. It's a little cheaper if you buy it on a big rule or big roll. And the fittings are kind of expensive. They're like $9 a piece. But if you've priced garden hoses are ridiculous. So that's what we're going to do on that. And then we're going to be using the Job full flow mega valves. Float that goes on there. Everyone says these are the ones to use, so we'll see. They're kind of expensive. They're like $70 a piece, but only going to need a few of them. Using some 150-gallon poly water tanks. All right, so the tire tanks at home, I've kind of covered these in the video when it was so cold outside. So these I had installed by the same guys that did all my water lines. I was kind of skeptical, but we got down to -11 actual temperature here about a month ago. And for Southwest Missouri, I think that might be the coldest actual temperature I've ever seen it. And there was ice on them. I'll put a little clip up in the corner here what they looked like that morning. And there was only, well, that one there wasn't any cattle drinking out of, and it still had an open spot of water. So try not to drop my phone in the water. So that little valve right there that's got the tube coming off of it, that is essentially, if you guys have seen the freeze miser, they advertise them putting them on your hydrants and they automatically open up when the water temp's like 35 or something, and then they close back off. That is essentially all that is. So when it was cold, that would start dribbling water, and then it would eventually go over your overflow. And so yes, they do run some water when it's cold. I mean, you got to keep them from freezing somehow. But they worked really well, I think. They probably hold 300 gallons, so there's quite a bit of water here too. I'm going to fill them full of goldfish here to kind of keep the algae and stuff ate out of them, I think. Supposedly that works pretty good. That float, whenever it starts pumping water, it sure moves a lot of water when it gets low. All of them are valved, of course. In case you have issues, you can turn your valve off. You can kind of see, so they plowed in all my water lines. It's got, looks like a little bulldozer with a big shank on the back that vibrates. And we're pretty rocky ground, but you can kind of see it puckers the ground where they go, but a whole lot better than trenching it and digging up all those rocks. And I wanted to kind of go over something pertaining to NRCS and the EQIP program. So on these tire tanks, which we didn't know this at the time, and it all worked out all right, but some of these tires that have the metal cords showing, If you're buying tires or having someone do it for you, yes, they're going to hold water forever. It doesn't affect what it's doing, but NRCS does not want any cord showing. I'm going to come in here and I'm going to trim these all off. But just for the fact of cattle can possibly, get an eye poked or something. So whenever, if you're doing tire tanks, and this is the only one they brought me that had cord showing, but make sure, especially if it's NRCS, don't have any cord for my temporary fencing. Reels, I really like Terragate reels. On the Terragate deal, these Terragate handles that you can hook up hot or cold, depending on, like on all my temporary or my permanent smooth wire fences in the middle for the Stemmons place over there. That fence is my hot fence, and so I will set my reel up on a perimeter fence, and then I run this to my permanent fence in the center of the 40, and I hook it up hot, and that's where my power comes from. Really like everything Terragate makes so far. Polybraid, that is PowerFlex's, I think they call it the Super 9 Polybraid. I've had these reels for a couple of years after I did grazing school. I went out and bought a bunch of reels, and we started trying to fence off 40s, and it was just a big pain in the butt, but it did work. So this stuff is actually 3 years old, and it's still in great shape. Tread-in post. These are O'Brien's. They work really well. The spade on the bottom is small, and I've even sharpened some of these. And in a drought, they go in the ground really well. Some of the ones that have a great big spike on the end are hard to get into hard ground. And one other thing I started using is from a company here actually in Missouri called Utilizer. And if you've ever drug one of these reels across a quarter mile, they get heavy. With these brackets, you mount it to your T-post, and then your reel hangs on there. So you just leave your reel there, take the brake off, and you take off with the wire, and you go up to where you're going instead of carrying the reel all the way across the field. So Utilizer, they've got a website. This will go on a T-post either way. It's 3D printed, so I'm kind of anxious to see how long that lives. But other than that, I really like the concept. They've got several other brackets that go on T-posts for like standoff posts, so you can go check them out. So that's what we're using for our temporary fencing. So kind of go over, I don't know a better way to show you guys, but an aerial map. So this is a place, the Stemmons place. Like I said, most of the fields are in square 40s. When you get down here towards the bottoms, it's a little different. But so here's our high tensile permanent fence that we split the 40s with. The circles represent the watering points. So of course we got water to every paddock. The dotted lines are polywire fencing. It's, just temporary tread-in posts. So we can split this up more if we want to down the road, which we probably will. But whenever we originally looked at doing this, this is kind of how I had it set up, and that was 3 years ago. So the well is at his house. So we got valves at the well. There's valves at every watering point. And then these other lines are just fences that were already there. So you can kind of see the flow of rotation here. This fence runs across a terrace, and I've got watering points there. I did not fence my ponds off for this program. They recommend you do. It wasn't required. But as you can see on a 1 or 2 day move, even set up like this, that they're only going to be in a paddock with a pond in it every so often. So Over here is where the rye is. The warm season's going, so we won't, once that gets planted this spring, we won't be over there at all this year. So 22 paddocks, if you did a 2-day rotation, looking at 44 days to get back to that. We would like to cut that down some more as far as putting more paddocks in, but we'll just see. I'm trying to leave it basic this year while we get our feet wet on what we're doing to use this system. So eventually, especially when we have the collars, we will probably we'll move the cows twice a day and do more of a mob grazing setup. So like I said in one of the other videos, we did not own this farm whenever we set this up originally. We rented it. And so the water was going to be underneath the fence lines, not buried. We got a deal worked out where we will end up owning this. And so I was able to amend our contracts. That way we could put the water lines in the ground. I wish I had more water. Whenever we go over the new equip program, I am putting permanent waters in these fields to help with that. That way water is more accessible when we do start really confining those cows down on smaller paddocks. We'll kind of look at the house here. This is our home place. A lot smaller acreage. Here is where the tire tank waters are. There's 3 of them. So they feed all the paddocks. Again, dotted lines are where we think we're going to put our polywire temporary fencing. So a lot smaller acreage, not near as many cows on this. So of course you're looking at 2-acre paddocks moving around. Kind of the same deal. Whenever on this one, again, I wish I would have put more water in. On this one, we were going to put a permanent water out here. So pretty simple, pretty basic. Kind of show you on the new program. So this is the other farm, the 300-acre farm that we looked at earlier is to the east of this. So again, I'm going to put high tensile fence. This is designed with collars in mind. So I'm going to put one permanent water in this field, permanent water here, and we're going to wagon wheel with the collars off of them when we rotate them around. And then over here, water point, tire tank, and then tire tanks over here, and we'll rotate them around with the collars as well. And then this is dark. I apologize. I didn't know a better way to show you guys this. But so this is the Stemmons place we looked at earlier. Basically just showing the tire tanks we're going to put in the center. So we'll have permanent winter water. Over here, so currently there's a little pond over here in the warm season pasture. We are going to take temporary water over here. So I'm going to have them bury me a new line over here. So what you can't see is there's a pretty deep ravine over here where the water runs, and then this is kind of up on the bluff. So I'm going to run me a telephone pole across the top of that. The water never gets over the top of it. It's really deep here. And there's just going to be a watering point with a quick connect here, and I'm going to run me a pipe across the top of that. And then whenever I come over here to graze this warm season, it'll just be once a year during the summer. I will just hook my water in here, and then of course this will all be buried pipeline with watering points. And I'm probably going to put a tire tank over here. So my big plan, go back to the one where you can see this a little better. I just wanted the fields still open, so these dotted lines are not there. This is the only permanent fence in these 40s, so I can still go in here and spread fertilizer, brush hog. If I have some paddocks that get away from me, I can still go in here with the hay cutter and easily make hay or do whatever I need to do without worrying a bunch of fences and gate holes to go through. And as you can see, the ends of these permanent fences, they're 16-foot gate holes. So you just run your cattle around. So that way it's out of the way. You can still go in there and do what you need to do without a whole lot of hassle. And with the collars, all this temporary fencing will be gone. So it'll just be the 40 split and it's just wide open, easy to use. So that's kind of what we've done. There's a lot of people that like doing wagon wheels off of ponds, and that's fine. I just really tried to emphasize keeping the cattle within 800 feet of a water source. If you keep them within 800 feet of a water source, they're more prone to come up one at a time to drink. If they have to go farther than that, the whole cattle herd will come and drink as a mob. Well, when I'm using 150-gallon portable tanks, if the whole 70 cows come up to drink, there's not enough water there for them to drink. So just try to keep my water within 800 feet. There's just a couple places here that's a little more than 800, but I think it'll all work. So if you have any thoughts, ideas, there's all kinds of ways to design these grazing systems. This is just what made sense in my head to be simple. I don't want a bunch of complicated, elaborate, gates and all that. So all that stuff adds up to a lot of money very quickly. If you're designing your own, after hindsight's 2020, now granted I have not used this yet in a grazing season, but just from where I want to go, I've kind of limited myself with water. That's why we're adding on to this. But if you're looking at your equip program and it's going to be your one deal, I would just encourage you to put more water in than you think you need. That way you're not limiting yourself down the road whenever you decide to mob graze, strip graze, whatever you decide down the road. So that's my 2 cents. That's our grazing system in a nutshell.
If you guys have any tips or tricks, feel free to leave those in the comments below, and we'll see you all next week.